What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds with Joe. We're back on the A6M3 and today we are going to work on decals. Now the cool thing is, because I painted on a lot of the markings, I don't need to do a lot of decaling. I basically just have to put on a couple of the details here and there, and then of course the side numbering and the tail codes as well. That's it. Everything else has been painted on. Now, since I'm going to do the one with the blue streak in it, I want to really kind of try to paint that blue marking on. I went ahead and made a scan of that, and I've cut out that scan, and I'm going to use that to go ahead and line everything up and to get the nice curve and the nice arcs. That should be pretty decent. But I'm going to first put on all of the tail codes so that I don't have to worry about placement. I can go ahead and put the decals on, then I can mask off, and then I can put on the blue. So that should be pretty decent. I'll also be painting the yellow tail codes as well. I have some lovely Tamiya flat yellow, so we should be able to spray that on and we'll be looking awesome. Aside from all of that, the decals are going to be up next, and we're going to use our scissors and just start cutting them out and get them all squared away for application. Now, these are Tamiya decals, and I know Tamiya decals kind of have a reputation of not really liking microsol or microset. Now, I've talked to Joe and he put on his decals with microsol and microset, didn't have any issue with that. So I'm going to go ahead and just go with it. I know sometimes they don't really like to settle down, but you know what? There's not a lot here that needs to have microsol or set put on them. So I'm just going to go with it and just maintain my standard decal application process. All right, let's go ahead and cut out the rest of the decals, get all of these applied, and see how it turns out. So that was not that difficult to do. Very few decals to put on, but I noticed that we don't have the fuel filler caps. They actually should be a red color, so I'm going to have to go ahead and mask off and paint. Now I have this lovely 2mm punch. I've got some Tamiya tape. What I've done is I've just basically used the punch and cut out a 2mm sized hole in the Tamiya tape. Just a little bit of gradual pressure here on my cutting mat, and then we can use the entire piece of Tamiya tape as our mask, settle that right down where we need it to be, and then airbrush it. Not hard at all. So I've got the 2 wing ones done. We do need to go ahead and do one more for the top of the cowling right in front of the windscreen. Now I've had conflicting images of where that actually goes, so I'm going to follow what the kit had, and it's going to be a little off center, more towards the pilot's left hand side. So let's go ahead and cut out another fuel filter cap mask with my punch. There we go. I tell you, these punches were a great investment. It took me a little bit of effort to get a hold of them. There was a shipping mix-up there with Amazon, but really, I got to tell you, punches are great to have. So we'll just pull this right up, and then we'll place it down onto the cowling. Yeah, right about there looks pretty decent. All right, now I'm going to have to burnish these down so I don't get any paint kind of leaking under the masks, but we should be decent there. Also, we're going to have to go ahead and take some blue tape and make sure that we don't have overspray. I want to go ahead and cover up all the areas there that could potentially have a ton of overspray. And this is red, it's going to really show up. And then we'll be able to go ahead and just airbrush each of these individual dots, and that should look pretty decent. So let's go ahead and get that wrapped up, and let's hope it works out. All right, everybody, I love how that turned out. That red really pops. It just is awesome. I had a little bit of overspray that just showed up right here on the front windscreen. Not a problem, just a little bit of some Q-tip there, and it should come right off. Maybe a little hobby knife or something. Should come clean off, and then we won't even notice it. So that's awesome. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the blue bands and to the yellow bands as well. All of that needs to be airbrushed on. And like I said before, I wanted to get the decals lined up because there's a little blue band right in the center between those side codes. So with our scanned blue band here, let's go ahead and tape it down about where I think it should be. And then we can just funnel it down and we'll measure out and make sure that we have everything lined up. So that small center area needs to go right in between the top and the bottom layer of text on the side of the aircraft. So using that as kind of a guide, I'm going to go ahead and kind of position that first, and then we should be able to gauge it, just a rough estimate here, and then we'll tape it down on the top. Okay, so this is what I've come up with here. I just went ahead and taped it down, and we are ready to go ahead and start outlining it. I'm going to go and take some Tamiya tape. I'm going to cut very thin strips of Tamiya tape, and then I'm just going to outline this blue band for the top part. I'm going to take it in sections. I'm going to do the top part first up until a panel line right above the decals. And then I'm going to take the bottom section, I'm going to do that, and then I'll fill in that little, tiny little blue dash right in between the top and the bottom sections of text. I think that should be pretty decent to do. That way I don't have to worry about it all lining up at one time. It's much more manageable this way, so I think that's going to work out. So let's go ahead and just take this Tamiya tape, and we're just going to kind of form it around the contours of the fuselage and also with the lines of this blue band. So a little tedious, but I think it's going to look pretty neat when we go ahead and get it finished up. So one side is done. Let's go ahead and check the other side. There we go. I'm going to be using a panel line as the demarcation point. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to mask it off, and then we'll be able to hit the top part of the band. That should be pretty decent right there. So put that aside. Let's go ahead and just eyeball the rest of it. And then we should be able to come back. We're going to have to use some blue tape and mask off the area so we don't get a bunch of overspray everywhere. So that's going to be probably our next challenge. I want it all nicely lined up though. I don't want it to look out of place or off center. So that's going to be a little tricky. And I think we have it in a pretty good position right here. Just a little bit of nudging here and there just to make sure it's got that nice curve to it. Very nice. All right, so I went ahead and filled in the rest of the areas with that blue tape. I have a nice curve. Let's go ahead and take one of these pieces here and mark off right here at the panel line. That's going to be the stop point for the very top. And on the other side as well. There we go. That's going to give us our top part of that blue band. Should be pretty decent there. And I think we are ready to go ahead and cover the rest of the aircraft for overspray. We're just going to use a little bit of tissue paper here, and that should cover the front half of the aircraft. Now we're going to take one piece of tape and we're going to cover the back part of the aircraft just like that. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. I just want to make sure that I'm not exposing any area to a bunch of overspray. So I think that's looking pretty decent right there. We have our nice arc here on the top. So let's go ahead and grab our paint. Now I'm going to actually use a little bit of a custom color here. I find the Tamiya flat blue to be a little too dark. So I'm going to take a little bit of white and mix it up. I'm probably going to do just a few drops, just a little bit, just to kind of tint it slightly. Then load it up in the airbrush, and then we're going to paint that. Then we'll switch over to the yellow, which is a pretty straight, even shot. And then we'll be more or less done for the day. Let's do it. So the blue turned out beautifully. I can't wait to go ahead and see how that looks. Everything glossed. It should look absolutely awesome. So now we're going to shift over to the yellow. I cut a piece of yellow Tamiya tape, and that's going to act as the marking. I'm going to put that down where I need it to be, and then mask off around it, pull up that center part, and then hit it with yellow. Very simple, a little time consuming, but it should turn out beautifully. Let's do it. See how it turns out. Just absolutely beautiful. I love painting on markings. It's a little tedious, but honestly, it just turned out wonderfully. Now, of course, I did have a little bit of an issue with some overspray. I tried to come in and correct it there off camera, but I'm going to have to do a little bit more blending. But I went ahead and I didn't want to hurt the rest of the line, so I shot it with a real quick gloss coat. I'm still using that Gunsy gloss. I just want to try it out on this kit. So I think we're good for today. We're going to let everything dry. And we're going to put it aside for right now. We've got a couple other things to work on. Then we're going to come back next episode, finish off some of the blending, and then we're going to start trying to weather and get this thing all finished up. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Until next episode, go out, get yourself some bench time. Head over to Joe's channel, drop him a thumbs up, give him a subscription. He's a great builder and an awesome guy. So we'll see you back here next week on another episode of Ben Builds with Joe for the A6M3 Hamp. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.